Chris, from my point of view, there's a bit of a 60s vibe going on in Bath at the moment. I saw the Dylan movie with Timothee Chalamet last night, and a bit of a 60s vibe here too.
There is, yes. I mean, the show has one work from the pre-war period, but it is very much sort of late 50s to early 70s. But that moment of the early 60s, that explosion of colour, and exactly as you say, I mean, we don't have Bob Dylan, we do have the Beatles and Mick Jagger in this show. So there is certainly a kind of a 60s music theme too.
Tell me what's on offer here.
So the show looks at the way artists used photography to make portraits in the 60s. Portraiture is a big part of what the Holburne is about, so we often look at portraiture in different ways. And there's a great sort of turning point here where artists for the first time embrace photography, but also make art that it kind of interrogates what photography is all about and how photographs and their mediation in the growing what becomes the mass media create icons, create celebrity. So you see images of Brigitte Bardot, Jean-Paul Belmondo, David Hockney, Marilyn Monroe, becoming almost like commodities through the reproduction of their image. And I think it's a show which feels very relevant because this was artists responding to a new phenomenon at that time, the new colour magazines, colour film, and of course the growth of television. But there's very much an equivalent now in social media and digital media, and the way images and stories sort of spread in seconds around the world.
The times they are a-changing was running through my head then. Now, it's not just a question tonight of previewing the main show in the gallery, but you're also, I think, talking about the whole spring season to come. Any other highlights you want to tell me about?
Indeed, we got 3 amazing shows at the Holburne this season. This is iconic, these great portraits from Bacon to Warhol. We've got a show of American artists, young American artists called Dietrich Brackens, who makes these huge monumental weavings that draw upon mythology and traditional imagery and symbolism to reflect on his identity. He's a gay African-American living in Los Angeles, but they're really beautifully crafted things. And then alongside iconic, we've got an exhibition of an even younger artist, Joshua Donker, who's in his late 20s from Bath, educated at Beach and Cliff and then at Cardiff School of Art, who's similarly, like some of the artists in this show, making portraits but using layers of images to explore his experience as a part Ghanaian, part English young man.
And I hear you're expanding your craft facility to adults as well. You run wonderful programs here for school kids, but time for parents, for grandparents, aunties and uncles to have a go at doing a bit of craft work?
Exactly. So creativity is a big part of what we are. We're not just a museum of old things. We're also about people coming in and exploring their own creative urges, and we do lots of stuff with kids and schools, but you're right, we're running screen printing workshops, obviously responding to the works by Andy Warhol and others, which use screen printing to reflect the kind of reproductive imagery in the show.
Come in and decorate your own tote bag, I
Exactly,
hear.
exactly.
You also are giving a particular lecture as part of the program.
So we've got some really exciting events around this show. There's a lecture on Pauline Boty, who's one of the sort of rediscovered stars of the 60s, by Linda Need, as a leading art historian. I'm giving a talk on the 31st of January about Francis Bacon and his use of photography. All of Bacon's work was based on photographs. And there's really you can dig deep into his art through looking at his photography. And then at one of our up lates, we're also showing what I think is the greatest British art documentary, Pop Goes the Easel, a film made by Ken Russell in the 60s, which again features Pauline Boty along with Peter Blake and some of their contemporaries. It's a really groundbreaking film. So there's lots of great programme around the show.
It is a fun-packed, very visual spring programme to come. I can't go without asking you. I had a quick coffee in the cafe down there, and there was the odd sound of drilling coming from the basement beneath. How are things going with creating your new gallery?
So I have to say, I thought the drilling had finished. It is occasionally still happening, but it was very noisy for a couple of weeks before Christmas. when we were clearing out the basement and we discovered great lumps of concrete we didn't know were hidden behind walls. But we're now in the construction phase, so we're doing more building of walls than knocking them down. And we're on schedule, so we're hoping, ideally in July, but certainly this summer, we'll reopen the basement with this magnificent new gallery showing the Schroeder collection of Renaissance silver and other Renaissance treasures, and a refurbished, expanded lower ground floor, and crucially, nicer, newer, cleaner toilets.
What a 2025 to come. Chris, thank you.
Thank you, it's very exciting.